Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Sorry I haven't been posting for the last couple of weeks and I feel really bad about it, so I promised myself to do at least one video today and post it probably tomorrow. But the thing is that today is my busiest day and I have to do a lot of stuff. I have to run from one place to another, so I'll do my best to record an interesting video and talk about one very interesting topic. So I decided to make a two-part video about what foreigners love about living in China and what foreigners hate about living in China. And I think you may find some interesting stuff, maybe interesting new information in this video, but probably I'll be doing all this stuff while going through my day, through my busy schedule. Yeah, so let's see what will we have in the end. And so in this video, let's first talk about such an important thing in our life as safety. And that's actually what all of the foreigners I know here in China love about China. Because I've talked with many foreigners, I talked with many friends, and they all underline that they feel absolutely amazingly safe here in this country. And unfortunately, a lot of them express that they don't feel that safe in their countries. Sometimes they don't feel safe going out in the evening or at night, or going alone to some places, especially girls. They often express that they don't feel safe going alone to bars or clubs at night. Oops. But here in China, that's another thing. Here in China, you can go to almost any bar, any club at night. You can go to suburbs, you can have a walk in downtown and feel absolutely free. And of course, it is easy for me to say because I'm a big guy, almost 2 meters tall. And yeah, nobody's gonna mess up with me here. But the girls express the same thing. And if you don't believe me, probably I'll try to ask some of my friends about their opinion about safety here in China. Oh, and why is it so safe to be here? First of all, because of the, I think, Eastern mentality that people are trying to avoid conflicts and they don't like conflicts, so they try not to cause any conflicts, and that really helps in like sustaining the safe environment, I would say. Because, for example, if I compare to Russia, Russian people are great. I love Russian people, but I must admit that we are more hot-tempered and more our blood boils really easy, I would say. And of course, this may bring us to the point that if you are in Russia and you have an argument with someone, it may end up in a fight, like real fight. Well, here in China, if you do have an argument, probably you will just at some point decide that it's useless and just go away, or the opponent will just walk away. So yeah, I think this is quite safer. Yeah, because of the maybe mentality. And also one more thing is that there are cameras everywhere. And I already showed it in one of the videos. And cameras everywhere. A lot of people, especially Western people, may complain that, oh, but they violate your privacy, they violate your rights, they always monitor you and so on, so on. Yeah, they do always monitor you. Yeah, they do store a lot of information and data in their systems about where you go, what you do. But you know, if you don't have any bad intentions, that shouldn't bother you. You're absolutely free to do anything you want if you don't have any plans about harming other people or violate national security. If that's not on your mind, then you're absolutely free to do whatever you want. Yeah, and be absolutely safe here. One more special thing that foreigners love about living here in China is how affordable the life is here. Let me explain. First of all, I already showed you some of the prices for the apartments here in Kunming, and from that video you may remember that many apartments cost for around $200-250 per month, and they are pretty comfortable, not too small. But when I talk about the affordability of life, I'm not only talking about the cost of the rent. I also talk about the food, because like if you go to the supermarket, most of the food is like pretty cheap. And if you don't like to cook, you can always order Waimai, you can always order delivery, and that will be pretty cheap. I would say that like in my country, the price for delivery food in Russia is relatively more expensive than cooking at home. But here in China, sometimes it is so cheap that I start to question if it's even reasonable to cook at home anymore. Maybe that's why in many apartments here in China, their kitchens are so tiny that they look like people just don't use them. So that's one thing. Another thing, what makes life here is so affordable, and I would say cheap in a good meaning, is that the online shopping here is like super developed. You can always go to online platforms like Taobao, like JD and others, and you can find a lot of stuff for a very, very low price. And I'm not talking about some like garbage. I'm talking about really good, pretty good quality stuff like clothing, electronics, everyday life products. And really the prices are so low that after living here for 5 years and enjoying this kind of way of life, when you can buy the whole outfit for, I don't know, 70 kwai, it's I'm not sure how much is it in dollars, but it is very cheap. Because you know, if I want to buy something in Russia, usually it's 2, 3, 4 times more expensive, because of course like the sellers need to spend money for transportation, for import, and that's why the final price for the customer in Russia increases. But here you don't need to pay for these extra expenses. You can buy goods for their original price, and yeah, that makes me just love being here so much. So I think when I finally go back to Russia, I will miss online shopping in China. All right, one more. And yeah, talking about the affordability, I also must mention like the shared goods here, because you know, in many countries, just to go around, if they don't have a subway, you need to buy a car, or you need to buy your own bike or bicycle. Well, here in China, you may not buy them, you can just rent them out. There is like a lot of public shared bikes, bicycles, cars even. So yeah, I've already talked about this in another video, but that 100% makes life here more convenient and affordable. So yeah, that's a big thing. Hello. 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 I want to talk about the very rich culture and traditions in China, because you see, China is the home to a lot of minorities. I think in China there are 58 different minorities living, and they have their own very special features, their own history, their own small beliefs, their own customs, and of course their own food. And exploring all these cultures is just amazing, because you can find so much. You can find some small minorities who live in very matriarchal society. You can find small minorities that have their own pictogrammic writing systems. You can find minorities who are like originally Mongolian, minorities who are originally more Arabic-like, and they share different beliefs. And if you go to these different places, they have their own like small they have their own art, their own music, their own architecture. And yeah, for people who love exploring new things, I think China is really like a hidden gem, because anywhere you go, you can find something very unique and very interesting. And when I talk about culture and different traditions, I must mention Chinese history, because really I know that many countries have amazing history, and I think all of them have very interesting, amazing history. But China has the 4,000-year-old history, so it means that you can dig really, really deep and explore it for enormous amount of time. Even tracking how the Chinese characters change throughout the time, from these carvings on the turtle shells, which are considered to be the first Chinese characters ever, dated thousands of years before, to the modern day characters, how they evolved, how they changed with time. It's just amazing. It's like exploring some very interesting ciphered system of writing. Yeah, and every Chinese character has its own, like, I would say, story behind it, because when you start to decompose them, when you start to see different parts of which the Chinese character consists of, and the history of these characters, how they evolved, you can really see the roots of this character. And even some of these characters, they have their own legends and stories of how they were formed. So I think that's really amazing. Many foreigners, they come here because they are just captivated by the beauty of this writing system. And you know, I study Chinese myself, and I really love that in one of the books they have an article about the Hushu. So basically that's an American guy who dedicated all his life to learn the Chinese characters, to collect as much data about its history, like the way they evolved during this different periods of time. So as you can see, some foreigners, they love it so much, so they even like dedicate their whole life to it. And you know, the interesting thing is that they have a lot of these stories, books and novels that are kind of related to different, like, ancient periods of history, and these books are very old as well. They were written like hundreds, maybe some of them even more than 1,000 years ago. And you see in these stories, the real life historical events, they are interconnected with myths and legends. So for example, it's just like the Homer's Iliad. He describes many like real events, but he adds gods, he adds like some mythological characters, so it makes all this narration very unique, very interesting. So let's take some classical Chinese novels, for example. If we take The Journey to the West, you know, that's a story about the Monkey King, the Buddhist monk Tangsen, and other of his disciples who go from China to India to get the Buddhist scriptures. And the book is filled with all sorts of monsters, gods, and like different crazy adventures. But you see, the basis for the story is actually like real life events, because this monk, Tangsen, he really existed, and there are books written about his life. So yeah, even though the book itself looks, Journey to the West itself reads as like this fantastic crazy novel, it is really interesting to find that it is kind of based on real life events. And if we take another book called The Creation of Gods, it is also a classical Chinese book. It describes real historical events, but these events are very interconnected with Chinese myths, gods. And so this book really reads like Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones, for example. So, and it is kind of crazy because you read it as this fantasy novel, but if you dig a little bit deeper, you will find out that people were claiming that it really happened in ancient China. So this is crazy because this is like a historical book and a fantasy novel mixed together. So I think that's really cool, because in Chinese mythology, in Chinese history, these events were considered as like real events, like real historical events. And I think that makes the whole process of learning more about Chinese culture and Chinese history even more entertaining and interesting. And I know a lot of foreigners who are just crazy about it. They buy these books, they read them, they learn more and more about these characters, about, for example, the Three Kingdoms, the historical figures in this book. Some of them became actually gods, like Guan Yu, and so on, so on. So this is amazing. I myself love these books, and it's just super cool. And I was really interested about learning different historical periods of ancient China, and some of my friends, Chinese friends, they recommended me to read the Shui Hu Juan, The Outlaws of the Marsh, the book, one of the four main Chinese classical books. And this book tells us about the life of outlaws, of criminals, murderers, thieves in ancient China. And this book is absolutely nuts. It's absolutely crazy, because right now you see it is really hard to find a classical novel, the main characters of which are complete criminals, bastards, and yeah, but it's very entertaining, it's very interesting. And some people say that this book is like an encyclopedia of China of that time. So you can meet characters of almost any background: smiths, merchants, outlaws, the like guards, emperors. So you can, by reading this book in original translation, not in simplified version, you can really learn almost everything about China of that period. As you can see, I can talk a lot about this because I am also very interested in all this stuff, and I just find these historical and cultural aspects of China really captivating. And so, in my opinion, that's one of the things foreigners love living here, because they can learn so much interesting stuff by just looking at books, looking at the surroundings, learning Chinese, and so on, so on. One more thing that foreigners love here in China is the travel opportunities. I know that in many countries you can go travel, go explore, and everything is great about that. I just think that what's so great about China, first of all, that's a very big country. So it has many climatic zones, and you can discover snowy mountains, you can discover deserts, you can discover amazing tropical beaches, you can walk around rainforests, some tundras. So all sorts of scenery you can find here in different parts of China. And people may say, of course, you can find the same in USA, you can find the same in Russia, different climates, different nature. But what makes it so convenient here is the very, very developed infrastructure. So you see, Chinese government puts a lot of money in infrastructure, so it is really comfortable to travel around. If you go to some place, it's really convenient even to navigate and to find very comfortable and nice roads in different areas. A lot of guides everywhere, and you see, even if you go somewhere in mountains, they will always have really nice hotels, sometimes even 5-star hotels. They will always have these nice roads with stairs, with handles. So I will try to put some videos here so you can take a look by yourself. And you see, why is it possible? First of all, because of the population. China has huge population, and so they very popularized the domestic tourism. So a lot of Chinese people, they don't even go out to other countries. They just explore their own country. They go here, there, everywhere, and it helps boosting local economies, because the more people you can attract to your area, the more touristic money you will receive. And that's why one of the best ways for the government to boost local economy is to invest money in the infrastructure. That's why it almost doesn't matter where you go, you will find nice roads, you will find guides, you will find already made infrastructure, some like tourist centers, parks, and so on. So yeah, I know people who just travel, who never thought about traveling when they were in their own countries, but once they came to China, it is just comfortable and convenient to do it here, so they just start to travel almost every weekend. And this is actually what I love about the place where I live. I live in Yunnan Province, and I think this is just like gold. This is a perfect place for someone who loves traveling, because here we have a border with Vietnam. You can go to Vietnam, or even if you don't want to leave China, you can go to Sichuan. Yeah, it looks like a small piece of Thailand outside of Thailand, inside of China.
Just without sea.
Yeah, just without sea, but they have their own like minority who is very similar to Thai people. They have these Thai architecture and so on, so on. If you don't want to go there, you want to experience something else, you can go to Meili Snow Mountains and experience these amazing Buddhist temples that are located in mountains, in these snowy mountains, with yak meadows and so on, so on. So, and if you really like Tibet and you're very curious about Tibetan Buddhism and Tibet in total, about their culture, you think that it's really hard to get there or it's really expensive, for example, you can actually go to Shangri-La, and this is also in Yunnan. It's in the north of Yunnan Province and it's on the border with Tibet, but you can go there very easily and you can enjoy their amazing Tibetan temples that look just gorgeous. I don't have the right words to describe them. You can experience the Tibetan culture, their language, and you can even go and study Tibetan Buddhism there in Shangri-La if you want. There are so many different places. If you love hiking, there is just enormous amount of places you can go to. Dali, Litiang, Meili, Mila. Yeah, I can talk about it non-stop for hours. Alright guys, I'm finally home, and that's actually all I wanted to say for now about why foreigners love living here in China. But stay tuned for the second part of this video, where I'm gonna talk about what foreigners hate about living here in China. Click the ring the bell button next to the subscribe button to be notified for my future uploads, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.